Well, welcome along to Hong Kong Direct, the show that brings you all the racing news from Hong Kong direct to you. And we've got plenty coming up on this week's edition of the show. Let's take a look at what we have got coming up. And we have got a new jockey due to be licensed here in Hong Kong. More on him very shortly. And a big week coming up next week. Royal Ascot will be simulcasting all 5 days, and we'll have a preview for you here on the show. Well, firstly, on this week's show, the new jockey that has been licensed here at the Hong Kong Jockey Club is a certain Keegan Demello. The South African, with plenty of winners to his name, has been granted a 6-month licence starting from the start of next season up until February 12th. And he has got 6 months here in Hong Kong. He's a man who's ridden plenty of winners, plenty of group winners as well. And he certainly looks to be a bright prospect coming over to Hong Kong. Some more news closer to home, however. There will be a few less jockeys on the roster. Notably, Jack Wong, Victor Wong and Alex Lai will not be renewing their riders' licences for next season. So their careers here in Hong Kong will be coming to a close. And as far as some of the other riders are concerned, well, Brenton Avdulla, he'll be staying for another 6 months. So too Luke Curry. He will also be staying, and the remaining jockeys unchanged. No Mick D, however. He has not renewed his licence for next season. Well, let's hear more from the newest jockey bidding to make Hong Kong home. Keegan Demello very kindly sent us this message from South Africa.
Hi all, jockey Keegan Demello here. It's a real honour and privilege for me to be joining the Hong Kong jockey ranks. I'm looking forward to the challenge ahead. Hopefully I can ride many winners there. See you in Hong Kong next season.
Well, now moving on this week's edition of Hong Kong Direct, a big week coming up next week, 5 days of the Royal Meeting at Ascot. And pleased to say that Graham Cunningham, a very good friend of the show, joins me on the line to discuss what's going to be a huge meeting. Graham, great to have your company as always. Many thanks for joining us. And it's a massive week in the international racing calendar, this. You're going to be a big part of it. And if we can, perhaps we'll start at the end of the week, because there's a race on Saturday over 6 furlongs down that famous straight where Hong Kong are going to be represented by Wellington. And I can tell you now, there is plenty of hype around his participation. How are you?
I bet there is. Hi, Nick. I'm very well, thank you. I hope you're doing well and that all the rest of the Hong Kong guys are doing well. It's a tremendous time of year. Brilliant summer of sport coming up. Ashes starting today, England v Australia in the cricket. But next week at Ascot, 5 days, 35 races, all in the Whirlpool. 8 Group 1s, I think it's 12 incredibly challenging handicaps. Frankie Dettori in his final Royal Ascot. Aidan O'Brien needs 2 winners to beat Sir Michael Stout's record of 81 Royal Ascot winners. Stars from all over the world, and as you touched on, the natural place to start. For the first time in, I think, 7 years, a star from Hong Kong in Wellington who goes for the big Group 1 on Saturday, day 5.
Graham, obviously you're very well placed over there to give us a sort of a comparison on form, if you will. How would his form here stack up against those that he will be taking on?
Yes, Nick, it's not my job to raise expectations in Hong Kong, but I think he's going to run a massive race, Wellington. His best form is right up there with the very best of these. And look at the backstory, Nick, as you well know. Richard Gibson, I think, was the last Hong Kong trainer to come to Royal Ascot with a runner. That was Gold Fun in 2016. He was slightly unlucky, only beaten a neck in what I think then was the Diamond Jubilee, same race as this one, by Twilight Sun. And Wellington is, I think he's every bit as positive, persuasive a CV as Gold Fun. We know how good he is. We know that as recently as December, he won the Longines Hong Kong sprint in really good style. Yes, Lucky Swain-S was unlucky. But look at the profiles. I'm just looking at my notes here, Nick. Gold Fun had run 2nd in the Hong Kong sprint, 2nd in the Centenary Sprint Cup, 4th in the Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup. Wellington won the Hong Kong sprint, 2nd in the Centenary Sprint Cup, 3rd in the Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup. The 2 horses have very similar profiles. So Richard Gibson has a pretty good handle on what's needed to win this big Ascot race.
Yeah, he certainly does, and as you say, it's a path he has trodden before. That is obviously the big highlight for Hong Kong racing fans, Graham. But there are 4 other wonderful days racing, and on day 1, well, we've got the Queen Anne and the St James's Palace. Now we've seen a number of these horses through the World Pool fixtures, of course. Let's start with Modern Games. He's due to line up in the very first race of the meeting, the Lockinge winner. He was an impressive winner that day.
Yeah, he was. He's really maximised his talent, that horse. He's won 5 Group 1s, French Classic, couple of Breeders' Cups, got the big British Group 1 last time in the Lockinge Stakes. I don't think he's a superstar, but he's super consistent and he will deliver. But he's up against a real potential good one. Not so good, not so consistent perhaps, but Inspiral, first time out at Royal Ascot last year, was devastating in the Coronation Stakes. So Mind Games v Inspiral and Native Trail, another Charlie Appleby horse, is a great way to get the show started. Look at day 1. We have Cunningham, super Australian filly, up against Highfield Princess. Keep an eye on a horse called Manakan. I think he might be ridden by Frankie in the King Stand Stakes. He is the type of horse who you should definitely keep on your side. Got a very good Ascot record, and with Dettori on board, he's going to be interesting. Then on day 1, we have a clash of the Guineas winners. 2,000 Guineas winner from Newmarket, Chaldean, goes up against Aidan O'Brien's Irish Guineas winner, Paddington. Classic, hard-running front runner against the Stalker. Chaldean will go forward. Paddington will come from off the pace. Wednesday, Prince of Wales' Stakes. That is a race with a wonderful tradition and a really strong Hong Kong tradition. Fantastic Light won it before he won in Hong Kong. Ouija Board, likewise. And, of course, the Mighty Highland Reel won this and won twice in Hong Kong. This time we have a Derby hero in Adea. We have an Irish Champion Stakes winner in Luxembourg. We have an English Champion Stakes winner in Bay Bridge. And we have a very, very progressive horse in My Prospero. So Wednesday's Prince of Wales is a real highlight, perhaps, in terms of depth of quality, the race of the week, Nick.
Absolutely, and just on a common theme throughout the course of the week, Graham, I had a glance through the cards earlier on today. Frankie Dettori, he's a World Pool ambassador. They'll raise the roof off Ascot, won't they, if Frankie has a good week?
Yeah, day 1's really important for Frankie. He's got 3 or 4 very strong rides, but it's not easy at Ascot. As we know, it gets tougher as the week goes on. But his main trainer, John and Thady Gosden, they look very deep this year. It will be a big surprise if Frankie doesn't snag a winner or 2, but I'm sure he'd like to get at least 1 or 2 on the board early. And Tuesday, day 1, is a big day for Dettori.
It is indeed. And another big day, Graham, perhaps at a slightly lesser degree, albeit very important. Now, there's a handicap called the Britannia. Now, we don't have the runners for that, but it's traditionally been a race where Hong Kong buyers have been shopping. Obviously, that will certainly be the focus for many an owner here in Hong Kong as well, I'm sure.
It will. It's got a very, very rich pedigree for providing Hong Kong with good quality horses, potential Derby contenders, and no question the talent scouts will be hitting the stopwatches and looking for the horses who've shipped well in that race. Also on Thursday, Nick, as you know, is the Gold Cup, one of the highlights of the week, 2.5 miles. It's an alien distance to most international race fans, but this is a special race. It's a bit of a weird race this year because Stradivarius, multiple winner, is off at stud. Last year's winner, Kyprios, is sidelined. So we have newcomers to the Gold Cup scene, like Coltrane, who looks a very strong contender for Oisin Murphy. He was really good at Ascot first time out this season. Trushan, who's been withdrawn late because of fast ground, 2 years running in this race. I hope he gets a bit of rain so he can take his chance. Lots of options in that. Friday, the fillies take centre stage, and another clash of Guineas winners. Morge just beat Tahira at Newmarket. Tahira went on to win the Irish Guineas. Those 2 fillies will be dominating the betting on Friday. But there's another filly in this race for the Gosdens, I suspect with Dettori on board. She's called Queen for You. She's very lightly raced. She impressed when second at York last time. And if you have a look back into your stud books, your pedigree records, you'll see that her dam, Fallen for You, bolted up in this race, I think in 2012 for John Gosden. So if Dettori hasn't got a winner by Friday, the smile may have disappeared a little, but maybe Fallen for You, excuse me, what she called Queen for You, is the one to keep an eye on in the coronation.
There certainly is, Graham. Look, many thanks for joining us. Obviously, we look forward to your input along with John Blance throughout the course of the week. But take care, and we look forward to the Royal meeting coming up next week. Thanks for joining us, Graham.
Great to chat. I hope you really enjoy it. It should be a spectacular show.
Well, let's take a look at what we've got coming up for you over the course of the next week or so here in Hong Kong with race meetings. We're here on Sunday at Sha Tin for a twilight fixture starting at 4 o'clock. Back to Sha Tin on the 25th for another twilight with a couple of Group 3s, Premier Cup and Premier Plate, and then Happy Valley on the 28th of June. Not forgetting, of course, no Happy Valley meeting throughout the course of next week with the 5 days of Royal Ascot. And as we leave you on this week's edition of the show, quite appropriately, we're going to go back to 2012. The King's Stand Stakes was won by a certain Little Bridge, partnered by Zach Purton. Enjoy this. Many thanks for your company, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Tangerine Trees and Little Bridge it is who show with Ponty Acclaim. Night Carnation Margot did. Hamish McGonigal pushed along. Bated Breath over on the far side with Hortensia and Stepper Point Monsieur Joe. More towards the near side. Trying to do best there is a more prop with Soul Power, but action's out in the centre. Tangerine Trees leading Little Bridge. Ponty Acclaim, Hortensia, Stepper Point, Bated Breath with the pink cap. Also staying on his Spirit Court. Soul Power doing best of the near side group. It's Little Bridge for Hong Kong who leads the King's Stand from Bated Breath. Soul Power trying to come home strongly for Ireland, but driven out towards the line. It's Little Bridge for Zach Purton. It's going to win for Danny Shum, the King's Stand for Hong Kong.